Sara, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Everything But the Carbon Sink. We are live together here at the ReFed Solutions Summit. I'm so grateful to have you. You are the Executive Director of ReFed now, which in many ways, from my perspective, after seeing the growth of the organization, really is such a beautiful signal of how much it's grown in this space, and in turn, how much the food loss and waste space has evolved over these years. So one, thank you so much for being here. And I think too, sort of being amidst the summit energy, I want to start sort of with what we all know ReFed to be, the insights driver in this space. What are some of the things that you're seeing as a team in sort of the evolution of where food loss and waste is going? What are some friction points? What are some wins that we can be excited about right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is such an exciting moment in food waste reduction work, and I could geek out about this all day, but I think that we're really at this moment where we've moved from kind of momentum and lots of kind of energy and excitement that's starting to move into scale. So we're starting to see real reductions. You know, a great example being when we think about the PCFWC and the Pacific Coast organizations. Retailers have seen since 2019 30%.
Maybe even tell us what's the acronym stand for? What
Sure,
are they doing?
Yeah. Pacific Coast Food Waste Collaborative. Both private and public organizations that are partnered on the Pacific Northwest, up and down North America, that are all working to reduce food waste. And retailers within that set, since 2019, they've reduced food waste by 30%. I mean, that's astronomical amount. And then we're starting to see that scale across the country when we talk about folks who are in the U.S. Waste Pact that are operating across the whole U.S. They're seeing sizable reductions as well. Many of them are here talking about those wins. We're seeing policy momentum. We have organic waste bans across the country and more being introduced. We're seeing date label introductions of folks who are working on date labels.
Yes,
again, expanding, getting great interest at the federal level as well. You just think about food waste reduction really is a system-wide problem, and what we're seeing is we're seeing progress across each and every vertical, each and every type of stakeholder is making progress, making momentum, and they're not doing it as like a little pilot project here or there. They're doing it at large scale, and that's what's super exciting.
Yeah, I love that, and I agree with you too. Like the momentum was built beautifully over this half-ish decade, and now moving into scaling, and like what you're saying, to moving past pilots to actual systemic change. Where are some of those sticky points where we're not maybe making as much progress as we hoped that we would, or where we feel like there's still an unlock that needs to happen?
I mean, I think that there's two places where we want to see more energy and activation. One is consumer food waste. Ultimately, consumers continue to be the number one leading source of food waste.
Yep.
You know, guilty as charged in our own homes. It's what's happening.
And it's the toddlers' faults, by the way. It's the children.
You know what? Have teenagers, and they'll eat everything.
Okay, there we go.
I'll trade you. We can trade households
for a
little
then
bit.
It'll switch.
Yep, it'll switch, and then everything will be gone magically.
Yes. Okay. Good.
No, so I mean, I think in all seriousness, you know, consumers are the ones who waste the most.
Yeah.
We take those leftovers home with the best intentions. You know, 5 days later, we didn't ever eat it, and it was actually creeped to the back of our refrigerator, and never to be seen again, except for to be thrown into a trash can.
Yep.
It's when you purchase that huge thing that was in bulk, but you're like, oh, I love that, I'm going to eat it.
And great price, it's on sale, 2 for 1.
And now you have 5 yogurts that you're throwing out a month later because you actually didn't eat the 32 yogurts you purchased.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's still a huge opportunity when it comes to reaching consumers and educating them about what food waste is really costing them in terms of their pocketbook, but also what is costing the environment, et cetera, all the other costs of food waste. I think that's one area of opportunity. And the second is just funding. You know, we continue to see, obviously in this time we have constrained federal funding, but we also don't have as much philanthropic funding. There's lots of folks who are doing amazing work and are putting energy into it, but it's actually a great space for investment. It's kind of where clean energy was a few years ago. Like, these are actually really smart bets, and we need to just get more capital coming into the space to start funding some of these solutions and help them move from that pilot stage into scale.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit more on the philanthropy side too, because what's some of the framing and messaging that you hope will continue to stick with philanthropists to sort of accelerate that? Because for people like you and me, we're like, oh my God, it's the best investment. Like, how could you not? Like, it feels very obvious. And for some, even understanding that linkage between food and climate, for example, and you mentioning, clean energy previously. How do we get philanthropists thinking about this work in a more strategic way, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really interesting because you can really go to a funder of any sort and have a very diverse conversation. Because the reality is, you can make a very clear economic argument. I can say, I can help a food service operator save money and improve their margin. I can do that tomorrow by adopting food waste solutions. Every business wants to do that. Every food service operator wants to do that. I can say, this is a good investment for them. They want to do these things. I can say it's better for consumers, which then will have a downstream social impact. I can make the case very clearly of food waste and the astronomical climate implications of our food waste problem. I can talk about land use, water, and then the linkage to biodiversity. You really can make a case for it for an investor to say, you're actually solving a polycrisis. You're actually helping people who are in need, for example, get food, like folks that are hungry. Let's recover some more food, get it into people's bellies. You can make a case for the business, improving their business and their economics. And the environmental angle, you can just hit any single angle. Like, it's an easy case to make because everybody has kind of an opportunity. Everybody has a way to relate to it. Whether you care about water and land or whether you care about your community and your neighbors and making sure your neighbors in need have something to eat.
There's a strong case that brings you right back to food loss and waste.
Exactly.
Yeah. I often describe it as like the Trojan horse issue within philanthropy, or even sort of like the party trick of food loss and waste, being able to sort of be whatever it needs to be, still in a very authentic, credible way, but its connection to so many different impact areas allows it to sort of come up in those maybe unexpected funding conversations.
Very true.
I'm also curious too, for ReFed itself, again, we're here at the Solutions Summit, which is so exciting. Where is ReFed continuing to sort of play a role? Because again, in many ways, like, the space has totally evolved. It's matured in a beautiful way. There's so many organizations, innovations going on. ReFed is known for this multi-stakeholder partnerships, convening, and then insights and data to really help drive decision making. How are you and the team thinking about where ReFed plays a role in this larger space today and moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. We're here at the summit, and we have the largest summit we have ever had to date, 780 different stakeholders here.
Bananagrams.
Which is insane. And it is an incredibly diverse set of folks. We have folks from government agencies, we have folks from local agencies, we have business leaders from some of the biggest and some of the smallest businesses here. We are so excited because cultivating and convening is actually a key part of our strategy. Because for us, we're not about growing ReFed as an organization. We're saying, how do we actually enable and empower folks to do food waste reduction work? And so this is a really critical part of that, is getting people together to make pre-competitive collaborations, to have new partnership conversations, to make the connection between a brand that wants to do more food recovery and a food recovery organization. So those are so important. So an event like this is critical for that. But when we think about ReFed moving forward, while we do work across, we do tons of data and insights work and saying, how do we give people actionable evidence to take the next step, to do something else to fight and combat food waste? We work on capital. We help folks find funding, but we also fund ourselves through our Catalytic Grant Fund.
Which is amazing.
New grantees are being announced tomorrow. Very exciting. We work with businesses. All of that is really exciting. For us, I think some of the biggest points of leverage moving into the future is, one, continuing to grow the U.S. Food Waste Pact. So we have lots of different verticals represented there. So we have QSR restaurants, we have major food service operators, food retailers, manufacturers, and how do we continue to grow that? Because that collaborative environment where folks are able to pilot solutions that then they can scale really quickly across all those orgs, huge unlock. And that's where we've seen a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
So continue to grow that, and then continue to say, how do we take what we've done here in the US and scale it across the world?
Yes, and take it global.
And say, how do some of these solutions that people are effectively doing here in the US, how do those work in Brazil?
Yeah.
How does it work in China? How do those work in these huge markets? And so we're really excited to lean into there and understand, where can we, again, help enable, empower, and give people the evidence and insights so that they can start taking action.
Yeah. Very, again, exciting, and means something very special to me to see how you're evolving this extraordinarily, beautiful organization and taking such thought and intention into sort of how you play in this space. On the flip side of that, too, as an organization, how consultants say, like, you can't boil the ocean, we have to prioritize. How are you thinking about sort of prioritizing, one, sort of bringing together all of these different stakeholders, which is such a powerful tool that ReFed has, and also at a certain point, we need to double down and focus in different areas. How are you thinking about sort of that prioritization, which I'm sure is a painful process to have to do? It's like picking between your babies.
Oh, it is the most challenging part of my role, and Dana Gunners, our president, and I were just talking about this, was one of the hardest things we have to do is say no.
Yeah.
And I think that I would shift that, though, and say, in terms of saying, it's not necessarily about saying no, but saying, hey, we're not actually the technical expert in that. We can't provide you the technical assistance you're going to need here, but how do we help you find someone in this amazing ecosystem of folks that are going to be the best partner for you to help you be successful?
Yeah. And you probably already know 10 people to connect that person with, so it's not even a no, but it's like, let me take you over to these other people who can help you.
Exactly. It's about cultivating this network of folks who can build a true infrastructure, because food waste reduction, you know this better than anybody, that this is a system-wide problem. And so there are a lot of things, I would say there's no magic bullet of how we're making those decisions, except for we're saying, okay, we're always laser focused on action-oriented. So like, it's not just about, for example, putting the next number out into the world or characterizing a certain problem. We're saying, if we do this research and characterize this problem, what are we going to get out of that that's going to give new information so somebody is going to take one more step? Yeah. And so for us, that's how we're always filtering and making all of our decisions, is what is that thing that's going to be actionable and it's going to then cascade and pilot and scale and move on. Yeah. So that's how we're really filtering it.
Yeah. I think that's not only a really powerful example of your leadership in the food loss and waste space, but even how nonprofits show up in their different areas of impact, and the fact that there's been so many innovations, I would argue, from the outside, that you do as an organization to be able to play those multiple roles, that I think does have really powerful and lasting impact on other organizations who are trying to do this work alongside you. So certainly appreciate that, from the outside. And on that front too, I'm curious, because there are so many, topics that we're in competition with, so to speak. That's sort of a reductive term to use, but we've got food loss and waste, and then people are focused on disaster relief and clean energy, and literally, possibly in the middle of another world war. How do we sort of keep the attention and urgency on this issue when we know and we believe that this is such a high value investment in time, resources to create the system change that we want to see, while also balancing the world that we're in right now and many other environmental and social issues that need additional attention as well?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the toughest things that we all personally have to wrestle with. Is in
I'm sorry, I'm asking the tough.
No, this is the right question to ask. Is, in a time of a lot of change, a lot of different challenges within our environment, both in the food system, but also just in our country, I think that for us, we need to really remain focused on what are the things that, one, we can take control of, what can we really take that next best step on, but two, what's actually like the short-term wins? What's the thing that we can do tomorrow that's actually gonna make a difference? Food waste reduction, keeping food out of landfills, is gonna reduce methane and is gonna have an immediate climate positive impact. So for us, we're saying, okay, we can do something today that is gonna have an impact tomorrow. If we educate a consumer today, it can impact their pocketbook tomorrow. So I think we just have to keep coming back to, what can we do right now that is going to have an impact right now? And food waste is that thing. Like, if we're tackling this, we can have a real impact. Literally an hour from now, it could have an impact in somebody's business, in their lives, in our communities. And so for us,
I think we just have to keep using that narrative. We have to keep
It's
lifting that up.
encouraging, honestly, to hear that.
Yeah, and for me, I'm incredibly hopeful. I will say, for example, in the current administration, food waste is an incredibly nonpartisan issue. And
Thank
it is
goodness.
because of, thank goodness, it is fortunate because it does have all of those benefits. It has lots of co-benefits. It is not just a single issue. It is
that
not
transcends
single...
party lines too, thankfully.
Exactly. And so it's about meeting, all those stakeholders where they're at and say, let's have the case about consumer and inflation and food prices increasing. Food waste reduction plays a part in solving that. Let's address it together. And so there's a lot of great conversations that continue to happen because it is nonpartisan. And again, because it addresses so many things, there's so many co-benefits that we can all work on together.
Yeah, almost like the Swiss Army knife of policies.
Exactly.
As we close out this conversation together, I am curious also, again, we're here at the summit. What are the top 2 or 3 things that you hope that everyone here in this community is able to, not just achieve over the next 2 days, because, we all go back to our homes and offices. Mm-hmm. What do you want people to take forward? And almost like, what's your ask to them? Sort of this, we're close enough of a community that we can sort of call on each other for certain things. So what's your ask and hope for everyone who's the 780 of us who are with you?
Yes. I think that if I had the 3 things, to your point, to say, one is maintain this energy and this optimism. We've felt this in the space for many years, and I feel like that is what's going to carry us into the future. And so I want people to really hold on to that. 2 is, find your place in this movement, in this moment. Absolutely everybody does. If you are a consumer of food, which we all are, you can take a next step tomorrow. But I think for especially the group here is, what's the next step you're going to take? Write down that one thing. It might be sending one email.
Yeah.
It might be connecting with someone on LinkedIn and following their content. It might be following an amazing food influencer like some of the chefs we saw on stage today.
Yeah.
And learning something to do in your own home kitchen. But commit to one more action, and that is just a stepping stone into what you can do in the future. And then I think the last piece is really seek out partners. This is, something that is a system-wide problem, and we all need each other. And that's where we see really big wins, is the interconnectedness. It's when a retailer is working with an amazing food recovery organization. It's when a food manufacturer is working with the farmer. Those are the points where we see huge impact.
Yeah.
And so I think it's find that, who's your buddy, who's your partner in the movement. And if you haven't found them yet, go look for them.
Yes, they're here. Out of 780 people, you've got your partner. Sarah,
exactly.
Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your insights. This is so fun, and grateful to be here with the crew this week, so I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.